Let's go to the phone lines and welcome in our buddy Chris Marler of Saturday Down South. Chris, thanks for joining us this morning, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Listen, I tell you what, any excuse to avoid social media on Election Day, I am there. I hope we can make this interview 11 hours long.
That's a great point.
It's going to be a very interesting night. You know, the famous Michael Jordan quote was, Republicans buy sneakers too. And I think it's funny when we get into sports radio conversations, it's like Republicans or Democrats listen to sports radio. They just listen. No one cares about what political side you're on when you're talking sports. Chris, I want to start with the game on Saturday night where Texas A&M really just dominated Arkansas from the offensive standpoint. What did Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies prove on Saturday night?
Well, they proved they can't cover a spread and prevent a backdoor cover and keep money out of Chris's pocket. I'll tell you that much. Very frustrating ending for me as a bettor. But I said this going into the game. I thought Jimbo at A&M, they seem to be getting better each week. And what worries me a little bit about Pittman is he's getting all the love, and Arkansas is getting all this love and notoriety. They absolutely deserve it. I think it's been a feel-good story of not just the SEC for the first half of the year, but maybe the entire country. What worried me is, now they're starting to get a little respect, which, again, they deserve. It's going to be a little bit harder for teams to maybe overlook them or not prepare for certain things, and you get an extra week off, especially. I hated the fact that game was moved to College Station. Because it's always a great game. I love it in Dallas. I think that what he was able to do really is kind of depend on some of the unsung heroes of that offense, which is the offensive line. Protect Kellen Mond, keep him upright, and then get the run game going as well. Because A&M's a very talented team, and I think that they looked good, and I think that's maybe more so than any other game they've played this year is a perfect representation of where the Arkansas program is now versus some of the other elite contenders. Because people don't give A&M, I feel like, enough credit. But that's what it should look like once Pittman starts getting his recruits in at Arkansas. It is exactly what A&M did. And, I think it was a noble effort, especially late in the second half. But just the Jimmys and Joes factor of it.
Well, Chris, first off, you should have bet on the Hogs because they're now 5-0 this season.
Undefeated against the spread, my man.
Yeah, you bet on Arkansas this week when they take on the Vols. But to your point about Texas A&M, Tommy and I were discussing this yesterday, Marler. Do they have a legitimate chance to make the college football playoff based on the outset of their schedule?
I mean, yes and no. They are a very good team. I would love them to be in the conversation just because I was one of the idiots that I was told I was an idiot on social media at the start of the year that they would not be 9-1, and look where we are now. I think they can get by Auburn on the road. We know how much Kellen Mond struggles on the road. They can get by Auburn on the road. They're a legitimate 9-1 team. Now, to get to the playoff, I think it's going to take two things, and that's going to be pretty difficult. You need Clemson or Notre Dame to win. That one of the teams has to go 2-0 against the other. And in the same fashion, you need Bama to either go 2-0 against Georgia or beat Florida. You cannot have a split, with Clemson and Notre Dame, where you have. I tell you what, because if Clemson they lose this weekend, right? And then they beat Notre Dame in the ACC championship game, and God forbid it's by 3 points. There's just absolutely no way. I think that the committee will put Texas A&M over a national brand like Notre Dame or Clemson. So I think they have a chance. It's a very small chance.
Yeah. You and A&M would argue that they're a national brand, but we all know better.
Yeah.
We all know better than that. But A&M's best resume win at that point is still going to be the Florida game. Question is, would that be enough at 9-1 with your best win being against Florida, and you're at home watching the SEC championship game? That will be a tough one for the committee. And like you said, how things play out. Now, I still got questions about the Big Ten, not from the standpoint of how good is Ohio State, but what if they only play 5 or 6 games because of COVID and their 21-day policy?
Yeah, I knew this was going to happen, but I'm already over the Big Ten. And it's just, I was on radio in Atlanta on Sunday, and the first question I was asked was, with Trevor Lawrence out, is Justin Fields now the front runner for the Heisman? And my immediate reaction, I was like, did Mac Jones die? Did Kyle Trask die? Why do we get so much love to Ohio State and then inevitably the Big Ten because of our love for Ohio State? And it's always in the preseason. I think, let it play out, see how it happens. But, you look at ESPN. ESPN still has Wisconsin has the fifth best chances of getting in the playoff. They're not going to be playing for the foreseeable future. You know what I mean? They missed the game this weekend. And I don't want to get into the whole, reason I hate how the Big Ten set up this season. But, my God, you really left yourself not a lot of outs with an 8-game schedule. They have to play back-to-back-to-back with no bye week. So I think at the end, if Ohio State is 8-0 or 9-0, they'll be in. But if they play one less game or they end up slipping up at all, their entire conference will be kept out.
All right. So Arkansas is halfway through their schedule at 2-3, 5 games to go. You watched them against A&M. What do you think the rest of the season holds for Sam Pittman's Razorbacks? How good can this team be over the balance of their second half?
I think it's going to be tougher than the first half. I'll say that. Just from a standpoint of what I mentioned earlier with A&M, and they're not going to have the benefit of maybe having any teams overlook them or not taking them seriously. They are. I think they're up there in the top half of the SEC now, is where other teams are going to have respect for what Pittman's done and that football team, because it's a talented football team. You know what I mean? Like we said it going into the season, you return 4 or 5 in the offensive line. You got Rakeem Boyd who's finally getting going, which is maybe the best news out of that entire game last weekend. I think it's manageable. I think it's definitely a manageable schedule. I wonder how it's going to look with you're coming off the bye now. You got to finish out the year, obviously, and finishing up the season with Bama. I hate that. I absolutely hate that for Arkansas. But I think this weekend I'll say a lot. I said it for the start of the year, Tennessee and South Carolina. Whoever won that game was most likely going to propel themselves, I thought, to a really good first half. What was I wrong about that? But I think this could really do a lot for the rest of the season for Arkansas. Playing a team like Tennessee, playing Jeremy Pruitt, because that's a program that seemingly has to win this game. To keep him on hot seat, to stop having all these questions pop up about him and, this and that with the administration and fans. I just don't think they're a good enough football team. I don't think he's a good enough coach to beat Arkansas or Sam Pittman. So I think they get started off on the right foot this week against the Vols. And can they get to 5-5? I think so.
Chris Marler with us Saturday Down South here on the Morning Rush. Marler, when you talk about disappointments, Tennessee's fans will obviously say their team has been a disappointment, but not to the severity of LSU so far this season. I thought LSU was going to be a disaster this year. So far, I've been right. What are your thoughts on where the LSU Tigers are in 2020?
I tell you what, I love LSU fans in 2019, but that entire just ridiculous I always call it the arrogance of their ignorance for any fan base. That's exactly what was happening with LSU. And telling us that they're going to not miss a beat with 14 players leaving the NFL draft, with not having to replace 2 coordinators, with not having to replace the Heisman Trophy winner. That was all seemingly true. It's untrue. Like that was a big hill for anyone to climb. But LSU has been trashed this year. I'll just say it. They've been an absolute garbage dumpster fire of a team. And I think the thing that scares me most is 2 things here. One, Joe Burrow's not coming out of that locker room, okay? He's not walking through that door. I don't know if fans fully accept that yet. I don't know if Coach O's fully accepts that yet. The other thing is, when you have somebody like Bo Pelini, who is so stubborn and set in his ways that he can't make adjustments, they should have fired his ass in week 1. Excuse my language. But he has been a huge cause for their problems. And I don't think it's going to change because, how do you be the only team that plays Mississippi State and refuses to go into zone? Mm-hmm. How does that happen for 60 minutes? And this is now the 3rd time you talk about the Auburn game. 3rd time in 5 games we have said this is one of the worst losses in recent memory in program history for LSU. The 3rd time in 5 games. You lose to Mizzou on the road, you get boat raced by a terrible Auburn team that should have been 1-4. And then we all know what happened with Mississippi State. I don't see it getting better. Bama could put up 100 on them. And I know that sounds like I'm exaggerating, but you think about what Coach O said in that locker room last year with the whole roll tide, FU. If Nick Saban wants to, and Steve Sarkisian wants to, they can put up over 70 points. And I think it's only going to get worse. I honestly think it's only going to get worse. And unless Coach O makes a commitment to change out that defensive coordinator, I think it will get worse. And the saddest thing I watched on Saturday, his team didn't get beat. His team quit, and that says a lot.
You mentioned not going to zone against Mike Leach's Mississippi State. That might be the only other more disappointing team in the SEC West based on their start and based on, oh my gosh, the bandwagon. Let's jump on the Mike Leach bandwagon. Chris, they've had 8 guys, I think, opt out, including Kylan Hill, who's preparing for the NFL draft. Has the bandwagon, have the wheels come off already, man?
Oh, man, that happened weeks ago. Yeah. I mean, you're a young guy. You probably get this reference. Like, they are the epitome of every person you have ever met on Tinder or Bumble that has just that selfie, that profile pic is just taken an angle way too high. You know it's fool's gold, and then you meet them in person. It's not the same. The pictures don't add up. Like, I mean, it's just it has not been even close to what we thought we saw week 1. You know, and like I don't want to just single out girls like that. It's the equivalent. Mississippi State is the equivalent of a guy on Tinder or Bumble meeting someone in real life. It's like, I thought you were 6'2", and he's like 5'6". I mean, it has been bad. Not even close to what we saw in week 1.
Oh, so you've seen Ty's profile pic.
What's that?
I have a pretty outstanding profile pic, Marler.
Heavily filtered.
It's fooled a lot of
heavily
girls over the
filtered.
years.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Mississippi State is heavily filtered.
So that's great. Hey, what happens in Jacksonville? What happens between Florida and Georgia? It's obviously a pivotal game for the East, but I think a pivotal game nationally. And I think what happened between Florida and Missouri and the brawl before halftime has gelled that team. I think they're good enough to beat Georgia anyways, but I think that pushes things over the top.
Yeah, as somebody that lives in Atlanta and has lived in Georgia my entire life, I've heard since, 1986 that every year has been Georgia's year, and it's no different this year going into the season. It's not. It is not their year. And I tell you what, man, if you would have asked me a couple weeks ago, I would have told you Kirby Smart's a good enough coach. He's going to make the right decision. He's going to get the right quarterback on the field. I've fully given up on Kirby Smart doing the right thing, the smart thing, the rational, logical, whatever words you want to use, thing for his quarterback. And I just don't understand how you've got – what did Stetson Bennett witness him murder somebody? Why is this lawyer still going out on the field and QB1 for his team? You have Dwan Mathis, who they pulled in less than a half against Arkansas. You got a 5-star on the bench. And I said this after the Alabama game. How many times do you have to blow a lead the second half with a 5-star quarterback on the bench? I think it's going to get ugly. I think Florida's going to win by possibly double digits, and I think Kirby is going to finally start. I think by the end of the game, like the Kirby hot seat conversation is actually going to be legitimate, and I don't understand why or what he's trying to do. But I mean, my God, Stetson Bennett the fourth is not going to get you to a championship.
Chris, before we let you go, man, I was joking with you about this last night. It is National Sandwich Day, and we were debating earlier this morning. First of all, have you had a McRib before?
I had no, I've not.
Okay. What is your absolute favorite fast food sandwich out there?
Oh, man, there's so many ways you can go with this because I've been fat for so long. Oh, man. I mean, Chick-fil-A, number 2 with some jack cheese is really good. I had one yesterday, to be honest. I tell you what, this is going to sound lame, but I remember loving this in college, especially. It's not the McRib, but it's still at McDonald's. Those little McDoubles. Oh yeah, you can pop those things like aspirin. You can eat them in like three bites. Those are probably my favorites. If I'm trying to eat a bunch in a hurry, which there's no reason for me to do, but I've done before.
Don't need a good reason, do you?
No, you don't need a good reason. Just sadness, I guess. Yeah. But so that or the chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A is fantastic as well. But I tell you what, since it's morning time, even though this hour was brought to us by Bud Light at 8 a.m., which is the concern time, the breakfast chicken, egg, and cheese biscuit from Chick-fil-A, game changer.
Okay. Yeah. I have yet to have that, but I'll make sure to try it. Chris Marler, Saturday Down South, always kind enough to give us some of his time. Chris, enjoy the slate of SEC games this weekend, and make sure you bet on Arkansas, not the Vols, if you actually want to win some money.
Never make that mistake again, brother.
Yeah, 5-0 against the spread.
I appreciate it, guys. You'll have a great day.
See you, buddy. Chris. Good stuff from Chris, as always. One of the more entertaining guys that I've met down at SEC Media Days.